Hey guys, it's Walt. Welcome back to my channel. I promised you yesterday that there will be a second part of my single issue reviews for the past 2 weeks of single issues. And this is it. And let's get right into it. Alright, let's start with the first bunch is really, I have to be sincere, not a lot of those books amazed me in any way. There were some which had a certain potential. Lone Ranger was one of them. Dynamite is known, it's by Dynamite Comics, and Dynamite is known to use dormant IPs and to fulfill the needs of old school golden age comic fans for genres that are pretty much have died out in mainstream comics, like the Western. And this is written by Mark Russell, who wrote the Flintstones and is on several DC projects right now, and I think is a very talented writer. A very political one too, which isn't bad if the story is very good. In this case, I'm not sure. The setup is that a lot of people want to put fences up where they're normally not allowed to put them up. So Free Rangers and Native Americans, they can't, or Indians, I'm not sure how to call them. However, they're not allowed to pass those fences anymore. And they're like bad people, and you can see how bad they are because they're grinning all the time, like this bad, mischievous grin. And yeah, then there's the Lone Ranger. The art is pretty decent, as you can see. The Lone Ranger, of course, is a good guy, and he wants to... he gets into conflict with those guys. But really, it was more of a setup. And the problem is that the character of the Lone Ranger, I have no familiarity with it at all. Isn't explored at all in this first issue, and we're supposed to wait for the second one, but yeah, it didn't grab me, and I wanted to like it, but I didn't. Next up, Blackbird. I didn't pre-order it. It's fantasy. It's not my favorite genre, and the latest Image releases weren't my cup of tea necessarily, but this cover, yes. Period. This cover is beautiful. It's by Jen Bartel, and I'm following her on Twitter, and she's by now, I think, semi-known or pretty well known even as a cover artist, and her stuff is really great on cover. Inside it's a bit bland, a bit conventional, and the story by Sam Humphries is also quite conventional. It's fantasy with a lot of young girls and dragons and stuff. I'm not the right audience. I wouldn't say it's bad, but it's definitely not for me. This year I almost liked. It was cool. It had its moments, and also a great cover, very dynamic, very, all those Image covers, they know how to design them. Look at those. They really stand out on the Rex, and that's good. Jerry Duggan is a very well-known Marvel writer. John McCree, I only know from Hitman, which is a long time ago. I guess he's done a lot of work in between, but I wasn't quite aware of him. His artwork is really good. It's really intense. I enjoyed it a lot. The writing was also top-notch. Not completely sure that I'm interested in the story. It's very on the realist side of things, as you can see here. Someone talking about his hemorrhoids and wiping his ass. If it's something that if you need this this high grade of reality in your books, and I think it's a statement, of course, that it's not a soft book. It's dealing with social issues. I love that the character who used to be like a very well-known gangster is now living with his wife, who is handicapped, and he has to take care of her. And this whole setup, I think, is very unique and interesting. The art is fantastic, but it's just another crime book where, yes, I'm not sure I have to read it. Probably I'm not interested in this kind of like hard crime enough, and if so, I would buy Stray Bullets, frankly. But it was very well written, and I'm pretty sure I will get the trade, but in single issues, I don't necessarily need it. It reminded me a little bit of, what's this film everybody likes with Keanu Reeves? Though, there are like two out right now, John Wick, something like that. I've seen the first one. I mean, I'm getting more mainstream with old age, but I'm not there yet. Whatever. Next up, Batman and the Maxx. Well, this is a miniseries by IDW and DC. The Maxx is by Sam Keith. Everybody knows him because he had a TV series, an animated one, back in the day on MTV. And I remember watching it. I mean, my English wasn't perfect back then. It is now, but it was worse back then. And I was like, yeah, it's probably because I just don't get it, that I don't get it. But turns out even Sam Keith has some difficulties getting what he's doing. And, you know, there are like those dialogues where it's a lot of dialogue. The whole book is like Batman and the Maxx are talking it out. And it's a bit sad because, you know, you have Sam Keith on a book and then it's just two guys talking. I mean, it's interesting, definitely. Every page looks differently. But yeah, it's two guys talking it out and talking about really weirdo concepts who don't make any sense. And there was like one citation I wanted to use, but I can't find it. It was something like, yeah, but you know what? Like the Maxx explaining to him the whole concept of his world. I don't get it either. And I was like, okay, I see. So, if you're hardcore into Sam Keith art, which I almost am, you can just buy it on the merits of the art. It's a $5 book, but the story is really zero. There is no story in here. And the writing is so amateurish that it kind of hurts a little bit. And I feel like he should have gotten a proper writer to help him. There is here a mention of John Layman, and maybe John Layman should have wrote it because this was not good. Next up, another Batman on the cover. It's Cursed Comics Cavalcade by DC Comics. 80 pages of short stories for $10, which is a fine deal. And you know, there are things where the idea, you always like the idea more than the execution, and one of them are anthologies. And you're always excited about anthologies until you read them. And this was another case of this particular problem. I have to say the quality, especially on the art side, was phenomenal. It's really great stuff. It's only top-notch artists. So it's, you know, the writing is not bad. Most of it is pretty okay, but well, pretty okay is just pretty okay. But the art was really phenomenal. I mean, the art could have been like on a top book of DC. The writing not so much. And I would say the two writers that stood out for me at least were Vita Ayala on a Wonder Woman story and Magdalene Visaggio on a Superman story, which was really good. That it was the best one of the bunch. So yeah, that's what it's good for. You know, you spot new writers and you look out for their next work. That's what it's good for. But yeah, it's not for itself. It's just you got the two hints from me for free. You don't have to buy the book. Yeah, next up, I'm bitching a lot, I know, but they weren't exciting. And this year, you know, I'm raving all the time about how much I like Red Hood, but also about the fact that it doesn't have a lot of story in every issue. And this one was overdoing it with the splash pages. It's one here, it's another one here, it's every third page is a splash page, and basically not much happens. Bruce Wayne shows up and he tells Red Hood, Jason, he tells him that his friend Roy Harper has died, as we know from what's the series again? By Heroes in Crisis, exactly. Which is the main event series now over at DC. And that's it. And they talk about it, they hug it out, and yeah, then he leaves the diner. And then at the last 3 pages of the book, the new story starts. And I think it should be the other way around. 3 pages of information, because it's not a story, it's just information dump. An emotional beat, of course. It was his best friend. But then let the story begin. So yeah, you can just skip it and start with the next issue if you want to get on board. This year, I'm sorry, this year, Justice League Odyssey #1, I think is, if you have read the Justice League No Justice miniseries, or are into the secondary characters of the Justice League, like Cyborg or Starfire and so on. If you like those characters, get it. If not, it's a super worthy book by Williamson. I still don't adapt to his writing style. It has always some fan fiction element to it. I can't really pinpoint it, but there is something there. And this also reads like it's not part of the DC universe. It's like a video game version of it, or a fan fiction version of it. But that's all I can say. I'm not really into this kind of writing here, you know. Yeah, it was okay, but it has an old school feel about it. That's one positive thing that I can say about it. It felt like a superhero book from the early 80s or something. Okay, and now to the 2 books that I liked. Finally, it's Nightwing 50. It's the farewell by old writer Benjamin Percy. Scott Lobdell will come on board with the next issue. And if you didn't hear, you see it on the cover. Dick Grayson was shot and has lost his memory. And he has also some other problems, blackout stuff. So now a new era begins, also for the writer. You can play with his handicaps, and it will make for interesting storytelling, I think. I guess a lot of old school fans hate the fact that he has lost his memory, and I understand that, because it won't play a big role in the upcoming arcs, but we all know that it will revert back to normal someday, of course. The art was great. It's by Mooneyham. I don't know his first name, but it was really good. It's 2 artists, one who's dealing with a main story in the present, and then we have flashbacks of how everything began with Bruce and Dick and Scarecrow. And yeah, it was cool. I really enjoyed it. I really love those new pages, this new paper that they're using at DC. It's very thick. It's good quality. The colors are really very present. It's not reflecting at all. It's not glossy. It's really good. And yeah, the story was really dense and fulfilling, and I'm on board. I want to know where this is heading. And it picked me up as a new reader, and I'm totally into it. I really enjoyed it. So that's that. And we have Hawkman number 5, which was, again, a lot of fun. Already the first page is super sweet. The bromance moment between Hawkman and the Atom. And yeah, Robert Venditti is doing a great thing here. He's faking science. I love it in comics when they're faking science. So yeah, it's also very talkative, but in a good way. You know, you have a lot of talk, but then Brian Hitch gets to do his double page spread, so everything's okay again. You get air to breathe, and then you go back into the fake science stuff, and it was super interesting. I can't reproduce it for you, but it's this kind of science where it sounds legit. It sounds like proper. When I'm reading like science books, I really have to focus to, not to understand it, to gasp at it, to get a gasp at it. And here it was the same. So at least this kind of seriousness and it kind of made sense thing was there. And it was really fascinating. The Atom is wrapping up the whole arc and explains to Hawkman how it is possible for him to be different personae in different times, in different spaces. And how it is possible, like I said, I can't replicate for you, but it is, and it's a lot of fun. So it's pseudoscience and adventure mixed in a perfect superhero comic, I would say, with great art by Brian Hitch. So go and get it. It's really fun. This is probably my favorite DC series right now. All right, that's it. I'm sorry that I didn't enjoy more. I mean, I'm really sorry for myself first because I spent a lot of money on those, but I'm also sorry for you. Next time will be better, and I'm having a graphic novel review coming up, so you can look out for that. Until then, read comics. Have a good day. See you. Bye-bye.